believe it. We are here for the final speaker of today. I'm Polly Ringo. I'm the founder of Black Women Photographers. I hope this summit, the inaugural BW Summit, is keeping you refreshed. I've seen the conversations happening online of how people are feeling inspired, educated, learning so much, and I'm so grateful for that. Today, we were having a different speaker scheduled. Her name was Whitney with Time Magazine. Unfortunately, Whitney is sick. And so, fortunately enough, though, my good friend Kreshonna Keane has stepped up. So that way we didn't have a hole in the summit. Kreshonna, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you again to Adobe and Lightroom for making this possible. Kreshonna, why don't you tell people more about yourself? I know you very well, but let's let others know you as well.
Thank you so much for having me, Polly, and for inviting me. And thank you to Adobe for this. This is amazing, amazing, amazing. And I can't wait to see more of this summit. But my name is Kreshonna Keane. I am a photographer and director from the Bronx, New York. And I specialize in portraiture, commercial, editorial photography. And I'm just kind of stepping in the door of film direction. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you as well. And so you mentioned that you are very multi-hyphenated. Talk to us about your photo journey. What made you first pick up your camera and just learning or teaching yourself the ropes of photography?
So photography has always been like that little hidden thing in my life. I grew up, just kind of like watching my grandma with her disposable Kodak camera, around the house, taking photos of me and everything. And, it used to be so annoying. It's like, oh, all right, Grammy, like don't want to take any photos. But I grew up watching her do that, not knowing that she was actually like a hidden photographer, right? Just never pursued. And so like I always loved and enjoyed looking at old family photos. And it wasn't until I got to high school that like my interest really, really grew in photography. So I remember like asking my mom, like, hey, can we go to Best Buy? And we bought my first camera ever. It was a Nikon L110. Wasn't even a DSLR, at the time, like all we had was like those little point and shoots. And so I bought that and I just used to take my camera to school and just take pictures of all my friends. I was fortunate enough to go to Woodlands High School. So it was in Hartsdale, New York. So like a lot of land, so me and my friends, like during our lunch break, we would just go around the campus and we would take pictures. And then at the time, Facebook was kind of like just up and coming for like us, right? Like before that, we had like MySpace and stuff, and Facebook was just up and coming. So I started posting my photos on Facebook, and my mentor, Kesha Lambert, she was just kind of starting out as well. So she was doing photography for a little while, but she was a lawyer for 10 years and then transitioned into photography. So she saw me posting these photos and she was like, I didn't know you were a shutterbug. You should come work with me. She had just gotten a studio in New Rochelle. And I was, I believe, 15 at the time when I started working with her. So I started out just kind of interning, learning the ropes, just doing like basic, administrative stuff, answering the phones and watching her do these photo shoots. And I was like, wow, like this is really possible. Like it's possible to be a Black woman photographer. It's possible to be a photographer of Caribbean descent. It's possible for photography to even be a career. Like all of those things like popped into my mind. And I was like, okay, it's lit. Like now I know this is what I want to do. And so after I graduated college, after I graduated high school, I started college at 16. And unfortunately, photography was not a major when I was in college. And so I pursued business and accounting with a minor in studio art. I was like, I got to get my art in somewhere. I've always been an artist. I gotta study art somewhere. And I have been self-taught. I didn't study photography at all. So everything that I know, I'm self-taught. And then of course, like mentoring with Kesha and kind of growing under her wing, that kind of really, really taught me a lot about what I know. And now I'm here, I kind of branched out on my own. I started doing portraiture and now commercial and editorial. So
I mean, that is just like so beautiful. And it's so funny. This is like the third time Kesha has been mentioned.
Yeah.
The first session with Audrey Willard and Echo Ambassador, she mentioned about Kesha and just like the
Mhm.
circle, like you have to have your tribe, you have to have mentors, you have to have people to
Yeah,
lean on and learn from. And I love Kesha so much.
me
If you
too.
head to the YouTube channel for Black women photographers, those who are tuning in, you can see our session with Kesha where she did a lighting workshop for us virtually in collaboration with Pro Photo. So check that out.
Mhm.
And because she is such a wealth of knowledge. And so, I'm glad you mentioned just like your heritage as well, your background, like
Mhm.
because you didn't know that you could be it, because you can't see what, like I mentioned the other session, if you don't see it, how do you know you can be it, right? And us coming from these immigrant backgrounds, what was it like telling your family like you're gonna pursue this once you feel once you realize, even though I know you had already some of that in your family, like some signs of photography and all that, but what was that like?
Oh, girl, it was like, first of all, Caribbean families and like parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles. Sorry, my phone keeps like vibrating. Let me just move it. They have a habit of like kind of really downplaying a lot of things, right? Like my dad and my grandparents, they all really wanted like Ivy League for me. They're like, no, you have to go to an Ivy League college and you have to be a doctor or a lawyer or a nurse or something along those lines. And telling them that I was going to pursue photography. Truthfully, I didn't even really tell them until after I graduated college, because it was like, what are you going to do next, right? And I kept saying like, I'm going to be a photographer. Like, that's just it. I'm a photographer. And so it was like the constant like tug at my brain of, okay, is this practical for you? How are you going to get a job? What are you going to do? And then there were so many choices that I was making. Like I was getting tattoos at the time, and my grandma's like, oh, like, how are you going to get a job in corporate America? And I was like, well, I don't want to work in corporate America. Like, that's not me. And like, I'm so happy that like that dynamic has shifted over the years. And I say this all the time, but what's so funny is that Caribbean families, like, they don't support you until, it's time to brag, right? Until you
Oh,
actually see
absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
Yes,
I know
until it's
that
time to
very
brag.
well.
Exactly. So like now, they're calling up their friends like, "Oh, my niece does this and my granddaughter does this." And it's like, you didn't support me back then, but that's okay. That's okay. You'll see the talent. So it was rough at first. I'm not going to lie. Like, and I feel like they place a lot of doubts in your mind also by doing that. And of course they mean well, you know what I mean? It's all they knew. And especially like generationally, like coming to this country as immigrants, having to work and working for years. They don't know anything about like this creative life and actually like seeing profits from it and being able to care for a family, because that's what the basis of this was. You know what I mean? Like coming here, it was like raising families and working. So I'm happy that my grandparents are still alive and able to see me shift that narrative. And yeah, like I'm just trying. My parents are young, thankfully. They had me at a young age, so it's like, they're able to kind of understand a little bit more than like my grandparents are. But I think my grandma starts to get it now. Like anytime she sees me, she's like, okay, how's work? How have you been doing? And I'm like, work is good. I tell her about everything that's going on, and she's like, okay, well, just keep working hard. Before it wasn't like that. It was like, when are you going back to school? When are you getting your master's? So I'm happy
This is why I had to start our conversation with this, because I
that.
can relate so much. And as Felicia said, I'm so glad we're addressing this because I'm also from an immigrant background. My mom is the oldest of 12. She grew up in the villages in Kenya. All she knows is work. I
Mhm.
mean, photography was not something that was seen as a career,
Absolutely.
as even just like a profession. Like, I remember in college, and I say this story so many times because it's still like it lights a fire under me still to this day that, I was at the time pursuing journalism as a degree at the University of Oregon. And my dad, he would send me like top 10 like lowest paid degrees, and journalism would be on the list. And I was a junior in college.
Crazy.
I was like, there's
No.
no going back now. I was doing my freelance photography. I was earning money in college. I was like, there's no going back now. I'm already a junior and I'm still
Yeah.
getting this. So it's like being able to just like pursue it though,
Yeah.
regardless of that, and like silence that, like the critique and the doubts and those voices, especially when it's coming from your own family. It's so
Mhm.
hard. It
Yeah.
is so hard. So like, how did you even just like manage the strength to just like keep pursuing this and navigating this world that you are not familiar with, you know,
Right.
while having that like that those voices until they realize, oh, you're
Yeah.
doing this, you're serious.
Yeah, I don't know where that like determination comes from, like maybe I really have to just give it to my parents, but um somebody said they're going to talk about you in the WhatsApp group chat. That's a fact. They're going to talk about you in that WhatsApp. But no, like I don't know where it comes from, like I've just always been the type to like never let anything like convince me that I can't do what I want to do, that I can't follow my dreams. Like, no, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna prove you wrong. You know what I mean? So, like I told you before, I started college when I was 16. Like I graduated, I was skipped twice. I graduated super early, and that was something that people told me I couldn't do. I kind of rushed through school. And that's why like I didn't even bother to pursue my master's because I was like, all right, you know what? I'm done. Like I could have had my master's at like 21 and I was just like, I'm done. Like I don't want to do this anymore. Like I want to be a photographer. So I kind of just like had it in my mind, like, I'm gonna prove you guys wrong. And I think that's kind of what really pushed me, like, I'm gonna do this. So I'm grateful for that determination. I feel like that's always helped me to never give up. You know what I mean? And that's something that like it doesn't matter how hard things get, I don't give up. So
And listen, I'll keep saying I'm so glad you have it because I am so inspired by you every day and your work. So let's talk about your first time again. I guess like I would say knowing what you wanted to do. So because figuring out what niche you want to do, what
yeah.
how you are taking those photos, what subjects, how are you even just coming up with ideas, all that. Like people get ahead of themselves, like but
Mhm.
learning your actual niche, like how did you figure that out for yourself?
So I think like almost every photographer, and y'all can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think almost every photographer has this thing where like when you first start shooting, like you just kind of shoot the first things that you see, right? So it's like flowers and like buildings and things like that. So that's how I kind of started. Like I was just shooting everything because my eyes were just being trained to like see in photography, right? And so like that's where my interest kind of grew. And then aside from like shooting my friends, I started shooting like my cousins, and just kind of like building that interest there. And I was actually using Adobe Lightroom at the time, like all my presets in there, putting filters on these pictures. And, at the time, like not really knowing how to edit photos, right? But they looked cool, you know what I mean? Especially coming straight out of like MySpace into Facebook. It was like just a really weird and interesting time for us with photos. And then, like the Tumblr days and stuff. So I think that's where like my interest really, really grew, right? And then also going back to like those Tumblr days, a lot of my friends were out there like down on Union Square. Like we used to really, really mob to the city, right? And so I would like bring this camera that I had, that little Nikon. Actually, so I had bought a Nikon D40 from my uncle. He made me buy it off of him for $400. Because of course they're not going to make this easy for me. They're not going to just give me the tools, right? So I saved my money and I bought that Nikon D40 from him. And I used to take that down to Union Square with me and just take pictures of like everybody that was outside. And those pictures would like circulate around Tumblr. Um, and so like I think that's where I realized like, okay, I really enjoy like photographing people. And then of course, like I said, like seeing Kesha. So all of these things were happening while I was in college, like on the weekends or after school, I was going down to the city and I was working with Kesha on the side, while being in school full time and working a full-time job. I worked in the mall for a little while. And I think I just really learned like, okay, people is my thing, like I don't want to shoot landscape. I don't want to shoot nature. I want to do people. And I think the Tumblr days also got me really interested in fashion. Everything was so fashion driven back then. Like it was all about what you were wearing. It was the monkey jam and the dead heart and, all those things. So I started photographing those things and becoming really, really cool with some great people today. And yeah, that's kind of where it started, and then
That is just so inspiring. Do you remember the first time you decided to have like, that transition into like paid clients? Like, when was the first time you're like, okay, y'all? Because listen, I was the same way with my journey as well. I photograph nature, outdoors, and I really appreciate the people who capture the beauty of that. But I realized that that was not for me. And then I
Right.
did also concerts, and I did like documentary. I mean, I literally, if I look at my portfolio, I did everything because, like you said, you have to try everything to know what you like.
Mhm.
But when it comes to people, though, it's weird because it's like, at least for me, the way I started my journey was like I photographed just like my peers, my classmates for so long. But it's like, okay, when do you actually like, decide, okay, y'all, all these free shoots, that was great. You helped me build my portfolio, but I want to start charging you. So
Yeah.
it's hard. It's really hard to make that transition because friends and family may not get it. So how did
Mhm.
you make that transition?
So I can't remember if that first paid client was for an individual or if it was for an event, because it's very possible that it might have been for an event. But I do remember I was doing a lot of free shoots at the time. I was coordinating a lot of free shoots, like literally just like hitting up a bunch of people that I knew. And I guess at that time, I didn't know it was called casting, right? But I was hitting up a bunch of my friends and saying, yo, like meet me down in Soho and let's do a big shoot. And I can show you some of those photos later, like they're on my Facebook still. But um I think it may have been an event that was the first paid client. But I remember that I remember my price point and it was probably around like $150. I'm not gonna lie. Like my first paid shoot, I was like, my shoots cost 150. You gotta pay me. You're getting X, Y, and Z. I was probably giving them like maybe 30 photos, like just going off, or maybe even like 50 photos. Like I was going crazy, not really knowing like how to price myself, how many edits people should get, all that stuff. I was just like really, really excited to be like making money doing what I love. Um, but I do remember like that journey of like every time I got better or every time I would get new equipment, I would kind of just raise my price a little bit. So like people would come to me and I'd be like, well, my prices are now 300 or my prices are now this, So that journey it's been rough, and we're still raising them prices. They still need to go up a little bit more.
What did yesterday's price y'all say? Yesterday's price is what? Is not today's price.
Exactly. So yeah, it's been a
I
journey. It's a rough journey for creatives.
No, but I guess like with that in that same sense, because I'm so glad you recognize that you know your worth, that every time you level up, so do your prices. And
Mhm.
especially now with inflation here in the States and just oh man.
The gas
If
prices.
you're listening to this and you haven't raised your prices in the last 6 months,
Yes.
come find us because
Mm-mm.
we need to help you raise your prices.
Exactly.
um, but like when you're having those conversations with people, like okay, like yeah, my price changed. It may have been this last month or last year or whatever, but like, how do you
Mhm.
like approach that and how do you navigate? Because sometimes you may tell them that, but they may not be ready to pay you your worth. So how do you manage that?
Right. So I'll be completely honest with you. When I first started doing that, I would get pushback. People would be like, "Oh, like I can't afford that right now," or "Oh, those prices are crazy." And I'm talking about like 150 at the time. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy. And for what it was, I was always talented. You know what I mean? Of course, my photos are completely different now, but still, like back then, you know. So to be all the way honest with you, with the pushback I was getting, I would allow them to, I would budge a little bit. I would negotiate with people. I would say, you know what, like, okay, if you can't do this, can you do this? I would work with people's budgets. I was settling for less. And at the time, it was because I felt like, okay, I need the money. You know what I mean? Like, I need to be making money doing what I love. Even though I always had a job, even though I was in school, it was like, okay, like I really want to make it as a photographer. So I was willing to budge a little bit, and sometimes even work with people for free. And I remember the point at which I decided I was not going to do that anymore. I want to say that was 2018. So 2016, I moved to Atlanta. And I lived down there for a little while. I didn't own a camera when I lived down there because at that point, like I still had the Nikon D40, but to be honest with you, I didn't want to use it. Like so many different cameras had come out, things were elevating. It was like these megapixels and all that. I was like, I know I can't do what I want to do and what I know I'm capable of doing with this equipment. So I literally just put that camera down and I was like, I'm not going to use this. I'm buying new equipment, right? And so I moved to Atlanta. And of course, moving to a different state, I was young. I think I was only 21 at the time. And it was like, I can't afford to pursue photography right now. So I got a job. And I was just kind of like getting acclimated down there. And when I moved back to New York in 2018, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to get a job here and I'm going to buy my camera and I really got to get back to it. Like I put down photography for a whole year and it killed me. So once I got back into it, I bought my first camera and it wasn't even new. Like I bought it used from another photographer. I still have that camera. It's a Canon 5D Mark IV. And I switched to Canon, of course. I had been shooting Nikon for years. And I switched to Canon because I felt like the Canon colors were just so beautiful. And I bought that camera used and I was still doing free shoots at the time. So still doing free shoots, just trying to build some type of portfolio because I didn't have any new work. So I was just hitting up my friends. Hey, let's go shoot out here. Let's go do this. I was shooting with Kaya Marley, who's Bob Marley's granddaughter. She's a great friend of mine. And, I was shooting her. She became kind of like my muse. So we created together for a while, like maybe about 2 years. But after I had built a nice little portfolio, I decided no more. I'm not doing any more free shoots and I'm not settling on my prices. They are what they are. And that's just going to be it. Right. And so I think I priced myself maybe at about, I think at that time I was probably priced at like $350. Literally, I was so low. And I remember asking Kesha, like, hey, like, where should I be? How should I price myself? Like, what do I do? And I think I priced myself around like 300, 350 at the time doing portrait sessions. And then a year after that, I raised them to 5. And then a year after that, they went up again, So it's like, and they just kept going up after that. But yeah, I think I definitely gave people, I let them push me, I let it happen for a long time until I didn't. And no more. We're not accepting anything less than we deserve. Remember that, Polly?
Remember that? Yes, I do. And everybody listening, I hope you all get to that place as well. And there's some great questions coming on in the chat. Because you're getting this pushback, how do you find the clients that will pay you your worth, right? How do you do that? Because like you said, not everyone will be willing to do that. And that's fine. They are not your clients. I need people to realize that.
Exactly. That is very important.
Realize that they are not your clients. But someone out there will be your client who will recognize your worth, what you bring, and will pay you that. But how do you find those clients?
So, that's really, really an important message to people, to all creatives. Like, if people are not willing to pay your price, they come to you for a reason, right? Like they recognize your talent, they come to you for a reason. And if they're not willing to pay, then that is not your clientele. That's not the market that you should be targeting, right? And it's really easy to just like, oh, this is money. Oh, I shouldn't turn it down. But not all money is good money. And so in terms of finding those clients, to be honest with you, I market myself a very specific way, right? Like I have a lot of work that I do. Like I've done event work. I've done weddings under Kesha for well over 10 years. And I don't post that stuff on my Instagram because that's not how I want to market myself. That's not my niche, right? Like I'm not a wedding photographer. I'm not an event photographer, right? And so there are times when I will accept those jobs. And it depends on, of course, who the client is, what the event is, and things like that. But in terms of finding those clients, I make sure that I am very, very selective with how I market myself. That's really important because, like I said, people see your work and they come to you for a reason, and they should be coming to you to hire you for what you do, So like I always tell people who are looking for like newborn photography, I'm not a newborn photographer. I cannot do that. I'm sorry. I probably could, but I'm not going to because that is not my niche. That's not what I specialize in. And that's a very, very specific type of photography, right? So people should be coming to you for the type of work that you do. Also, a lot of my clients have found me. And the thing is, so they'll reach out, they'll ask for a quote. I'll give them that quote. Sometimes they don't respond. And it's like, you could at least tell me, sorry, like you're not in my budget, or you know what, I've decided to go in a different direction. Some people they just don't respond. And like, that's okay because I know you're not my clientele, you know? And it's like, they may come back, you know what I'm saying? Maybe they're intimidated by the prices and they may come back. So like, I'll follow up, you know, I've found ways to kind of like pipeline my clients and things like that. So like, from inquiry stage to then like following up to see like, hey, you know, are you still interested or whatever? And then they'll tell me, you know what, like this is not in my budget or something like that. And that's perfectly fine. And it's okay to let those people walk away because you should not be settling for less. So I've had to learn that over the years, but that's what I stand on now.
You know, there's some great questions coming in the chat. And one person asked, you know, when you make those pricing changes, when you decide you're not going to settle or let them push you back anymore, how do you communicate that? You know, is there like a way you say like I don't know, like do you have like off top, like how would you actually tell the client like, okay, my prices have increased from last time, or any kind of pricing changes?
Yeah. So I think it's all about verbiage. There's a lot that it's just like, it's not what you say, it's is it not what you say, it's how you say it? Yeah, kind of. Yes, exactly. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. So yes, it's definitely about verbiage. So what I'll use is the terms like, here are my current rates and packages, you know what I mean? Or something like that. If somebody hits me up and they're like, hey, like, you know, I've had repeat clients, people who have come to me for like their birthday shoots like 2-3 years ago, and maybe my prices were different. And I'll just say, okay, great. Thank you for your inquiry, or thank you for reaching out. Here are my current rates and packages. So that way they know like, okay, wow, her prices have gone up from the last time I saw her, and they can decide for themselves like whether or not they want to book me. And people will be transparent, you know what I mean? Like if they cannot afford it, they will tell you 9 times out of 10, you know, aside from that person that's not going to respond. But they will tell you. And like I said, it's okay to follow up with them. It's okay to ask like, hey, you know, I completely understand if this is not in your budget, X, Y, and Z. And it's at your discretion. Like if you are okay with working with people in their budgets, that's perfectly fine for you. I have just chosen not to do that. But sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, I have done it. You know what I mean? I completely understand. Like at the end of the day, we're human. You know what I mean? Like, and especially coming out of like a global pandemic and things like that, like things were hard, you know? So I completely understand. And I have been able to work with people. I have budged a little bit, you know what I mean? But it has to be like reasonable, you know, like, and especially when it comes to like family and friends, it's like, nah, don't just come to me off the bat, like expecting discounts and things like
There
that.
is no family and friends
You
discount
know,
over here,
like,
I'll tell you that.
no. No, we're not doing that. But you know, like like I said, it's at your discretion, but it's
Mhm.
definitely about how you say it. You just have to, you know, like word it correctly to make people feel comfortable, you know?
I really appreciate how candid and open you are about this, because as I mentioned in in the previous session with Audrey, like a lot of people don't like talking about money and rates, but
Yeah.
we have to be transparent. I mean, like it really will change the game for all of us the more open we are about this.
Yeah.
When you are thinking about just like, you know, how much you want to make in order to just like not just survive, but your cost of living, you're just like your friends, whatever. I mean, like me and my nails, like how do you like figure all of
Yes.
that in? Or like if you are having a studio shoot, do you include the studio shoot in your cost of like whatever you're sending the person, like the estimated for the project? Like how do you
Mhm.
actually come to these prices, and what do you factor in when setting these prices?
So I think that's been kind of like up and down for me over the years. I did have like I was using a system called Honeybook for a little while, which is like a pipeline system. It allows you to create packages. You can like email your clients these things, and I was creating these packages. This was like maybe 2019. Like I was creating these packages that I did have like studio costs factored in and things like that. I don't typically shoot out of studios, so it was like it would just be like an additional $50 or something like that for an hour in a studio, depending on the studio that I choose. But over the years, it's been, like I said, it's been up and down. The factors that I consider are one, like, of course, transportation, how long I'm going to be editing for, how many looks people have, um, how many hours I'm going to be shooting for, things like that. And of course, like I'm still fluctuating with prices, you know what I mean? Like I'm still kind of trying to decide on how much I want to charge somebody for like a full day rate, or things like that. I think it's really just about like the scope of work, like, and that's what you have to look into, like how much work you're going to be putting into it. um so yeah, like it's been a struggle for me. I'm still figuring it out, like prices, it's a really touchy subject. um but you have to just know your worth, and I think a lot of people have struggles with determining prices because they don't really factor in all of those things that they have to do. You know what I mean? Um, People don't know, like people pay extra for edits, and people pay extra for editing time, and those things. It's like, but all we do is we price our points at what we're doing. You know what I mean? Like the photo shoot, it's just like, okay, like I'm gonna charge them one rate and then that's it. You know what I mean? And then when you get into commercial photography, it's like a whole separate thing. It's a lot. It's a lot. So I hope
No,
that like kind of answered your question.
no, no, absolutely. And it is a lot. Like you said, like there are so many different factors. And for those who are listening, we had a session about raising your rates at the beginning of this year in January with Nikon Ambassador Todd Young. And if you want to listen to that, it was a Twitter Spaces conversation. So I think it's only available on Twitter for like 30 days or so. But reach out to me about raising your rates or whatever it may be, because trust me, it is hard. I still struggle with it. Like, like it's something that you're just constantly like just have to like deal with, but also because things, so many just different things to factor in. Like, as some folks have mentioned in the chat, gas prices, inflation. I mean, just like your editing software, that's a monthly fee or an annual fee. Your
Exactly.
website service, that's a annual or monthly fee. Your
Yeah,
domain name,
yeah,
getting yourself there again with gas, like the time you get yourself to point A and point B. I mean, there's just so many factors that I don't think we really discuss that should be included when you think about your prices. Otherwise,
yes.
what will be your return? Are you just making enough just to get by? Are you actually earning a profit
Mhm.
after you calculate all your business expenses? Are
Yeah.
you actually earning a profit? And there was a question in the chat, even thinking about when you decide to level up with your gear, do
Mhm.
you factor that in with your prices? I'm assuming it is. Like,
You
when
should.
do you decide to like actually like keep that money, pocket that money, and then actually just like pour it back into investing yourself in your craft, if that makes sense?
Of course. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So I started doing that, I think in 2019 as well. Um, One, because I was purchasing all of this software, like I knew I needed these different things to run a business, right? And that's essentially what this is, like the business of photography. I registered my business, I got like business licenses and all those things, right? Um, and I'm just like looking at all the comments. Um, and so, yes, like when you are getting new equipment, like you should be factoring all of these things into your prices. And when it comes to money of the business, right? Like you should definitely have like a business account. I really, really try my best to like separate business and personal. That's really important, because that allows you to be able to pour back into your business because you're putting that money already into the business. Like that's the business's money. You know what I mean? So like if you have your separate money, you should be paying yourself, right? Like you can choose a percentage, whether it's 10% or whatever, of course, to be able to put some money away into savings and to put into your checking account. But business money should remain business money. And then as that's accruing and accumulating, you can then decide, okay, you know what, like I need to buy another lens. I have X amount of money. Let me take from that business account and purchase that. And then when you file your taxes, you can write that off. You know what I mean? But it's like you have to separate the business money for that purpose, like especially if you want to succeed as a business entity. That's really, really important. So yeah, it's really just about separating it.
No, I love everything about this. And you mentioned taxes. I see the comment in the chat about taxes. Y'all do not worry. We're not gonna go there because that's a whole other conversation. But you don't have to worry. If you head to blackwomenphotographers.com, you can just
Mhm.
see that we have an upcoming event actually on taxes.
Oh, girl,
Tax
I need to
tips
come to
for
that.
artists. It's gonna happen on March 24th. So do not worry if you are struggling with that because
I need
I
to come to
want
that because I'm struggling. I'm
come to
struggling.
the session because we will have a CPA there
Right.
answering all the questions on taxes and navigating taxes and finances for an artist. So
Yeah.
don't worry, I'll more on that on another day. But back to our conversation with Kreshonna. So I just love the fact that again you're being so open about this. You mentioned business entity. Did
Mhm.
you put like an LLC or whatever? Did you navigate that world?
So I'm a sole proprietorship. I want to be an LLC. At the time when I was registering for all of this, I didn't because of just fees. To be honest with you, like it's more costly to apply to become an LLC. It's not that bad to be honest, but at the time, I was working, and it's just you don't realize how fast like 3 years can move. So I definitely do want to apply for an LLC, but right now I am a sole proprietorship. But I do have like a business tax number for my business. I did register it. Yeah, so that's where I'm at.
This is hard just like deciding like because again, I feel like all of that is a foreign language. So
Mhm, mhm.
how did you navigate that?
It wasn't hard deciding because to be honest with you, I just decided based off of the price at the time. But what I will say is it was a little bit of a struggle when it came to just doing research, like navigating those like government websites because of course, when you're registering a business and all that, especially like with photography, it gets really, really tricky because there's so many names out there that are just super common. And so like I really had to like dive and do research and make sure like there was no visuals by K photography out there and stuff like that. And there were other like K photography, and I could have just used my name like Kreshonna Keane photography, but I felt like that first of all my name is just too damn long. It was like I'm not doing that. And I struggled for a little while to like figure out a business name. I'm like, what do I want to call myself? So that's really, really important, like determining your business name, doing research, making sure that nobody else has that name, trademark it if you can. That's something I still need to do. And none of y'all don't steal my visuals by K. Don't do that. Don't do that. But I still need to do that. But yeah, like I said, all these things have fees, they cost money. So you really have to research. I own my domain name. That was something that was like really, really important to me. So I have like visualsbyk.com. I pay for that every 2 years. But yeah, it's like you have to have that like clean and consistent business information all across the board. When it comes to like your bank accounts, your
Mhm.
websites, all those things just need to be clean and concise. It makes it a lot easier when it comes to like filing those taxes and just getting business
Mm.
loans, like having things like that. So yeah.
Did you wait to have your business like foundation set before you had like consistent like work and clients, or did you decide I'm just gonna go all in, invest, and just like pay for this, even though I may not be getting those clients just yet?
So I did the latter. Like I
Mm.
wasn't, getting clients in consistently at the time. It was like here and there. Of course I would get jobs and working with Kesha, I was still doing weddings, but I did just kind of jump on a whim and said, you know what, like I'm gonna just do this. I'm gonna register my business. And it was like the most freeing experience. I was like, yes, like I finally did it. You know what I mean? Like now I'm a business because this entire time I've been saying I'm a photographer, I'm a photographer. And I was kind of like manifesting that and speaking it into existence. But it wasn't a thing for me yet because I didn't own a camera and I didn't have equipment and things like that. So I think I needed to do that to like finally feel like, okay, you know what? I'm actually a photographer. I own a business. Now it's time to drive myself in that direction.
No, that makes so much sense. And this is such great advice. And y'all, again, March 24th at 1 p.m. Eastern, we'll be having a tax workshop with a CPA, Crystal Booney. So do not worry, y'all. Just head to blackownephotographers.com and you'll see information on how to inquire for the registration link on that. There is a question in the chat that I do really like. Saying, do you find it easier to manage the business side yourself or to find someone to do it in order to focus more on creating?
Oh,
Let
honey.
me tell y'all, the business side yourself, like it takes so much time, like admin and business, like the whole side of that. I mean, I
Yeah.
wish I could just focus on the creative, like, but go ahead, Kreshonna.
Honestly, Polly, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I think me and you talk about this every single day, but I feel like a chicken without a head every day because I'm wearing all of these hats. Like, I'm doing the business side, I'm doing the creative side, I'm actually shooting, and the creative side includes so much. It's like planning and casting, and like so much goes into that. So I would love to have somebody manage that part. I would really love to have like an assistant, who can work with me consistently, but it's like, or even just a team, but it's like, it's so hard to find a team of people that are willing to build with you from the ground up because I may not be able to pay you right now consistently. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's hard. I can't ask people to do that when I know people have to pay their bills. People have to eat the same way that I do. So I would love to have somebody help me with that business side, but it's also like I have an issue with control too. Like I'm very, very like specific. I like things done a specific way, and I can't all the way trust anybody to handle that side yet. You know what I mean? Until I know that I have a solid team of people that are willing to work with me and build with me. So yes, I do think it would be beneficial to have somebody run the business aspect so that I can focus solely on creativity, but I don't have that luxury right now. So I'm wearing all hats. And I think I'm blessed in a sense to have had to do this, because at the end of the day, if I had come into this and somebody was running it for me off rip, they could be stealing from me and I wouldn't know, you know what I
Right.
mean? And I'm blessed to also have a business degree. Like I studied this, you know what I mean? So it's like I know what I need to do to run this business. And it's hard, it's not always easy, and I am
Mhm.
still learning as I go. But I'm happy that I had this experience. So
No, I know, and Marissa, do not
we
worry, you are
feel
not
you.
alone. You are
We
not
feel
alone.
you.
You are
Polly's yeah,
very alone.
we
You
both
are not alone. We totally understand. I want to dive now into the creative side because I love your work. I'm about to actually share my screen because I want to like use the last few minutes that we have talking about just bringing like a particular project to life, because you're someone who often collaborates with others and you find those peers to try, like you said, build with you. So I'm gonna share my screen right now, y'all, for you can see this project that it's one of my favorites. I shared it on the Black Women Photographers Instagram and went viral. Like it is just a beautiful body of work. So now talking about your work, I mean, if you all haven't already, go to visualsbyk.com. You'll see I clicked on this project called the Black Ballerina. Can you walk us through this? Like, just like it's stunning, but like walk us through this.
So, as you can see, this is on Sunday School's website, which is a creative agency ran by Joseph Adamu, who is from Toronto. Amazing, amazing, amazing
Yes.
creative director. Like, we love Joseph. But Joseph is a great friend of mine, and we collaborate on a few projects. And this was our second project that we collaborated on. The first one went like super viral during the pandemic. It was the last project that we did before the pandemic. And so this one, Joseph was like, yo, we got to get back out there. Like, let's do something, right? So he comes to me with these ideas. He's like, yo, I want to do something like this. So he was like, I want to focus on an artist, right? The first artist that we had focused on was a musician. So he was like, I want to
Mhm.
focus on another artist, right? He was like, maybe a dancer or something. I don't know. Let's find somebody. So I put out a casting call on my Instagram, and this girl reached out to us. Her name is Jordan, and she told us she was a point dancer. And so over time, like, Joseph and I talking about the vision and everything,
Mhm.
Joseph comes up with this black ballerina idea. And so we both kind of creative directed this a little bit, but I really have to give it to Joseph because he took it like way further than I imagined it would go. But he got a school called Freed of London to supply the ballerina shoes, which was amazing because, as you can see, they are brown point shoes, and
Yes.
is definitely an issue in the dance point ballerina, ballet
Mhm.
industry. A lot of those shoes are made for Caucasian people. And
Mhm.
so we have these brown point shoes that were made for girls of color, and it's really, really an underrepresented group in this industry. And so we chose to highlight Jordan and her journey as a point dancer. She did it as a child, and so I photographed like some of her memorabilia. We completely set this scene. This was a peer space that we found, and we brought in some of her old trophies. We brought in her point shoes. We brought in some old photos. Joseph had this idea of like having the alarm clock kind of be like a pillar for like different changes in her
Mhm.
outfits, which kind of represent like the storytelling aspect. And so I just captured her in like all these different ways. And she was great in front of the camera, you know. And another thing that you can see is like the browns are very, very rich in these photos.
Yes.
I'm very truthful when it comes to our skin tones and representing us correctly. And so, if you scroll down a little bit more, we got kind of creative here, but highlighting those brown point shoes. Her skin is so beautiful. Um, and
Oh,
like I
that's
said, that
awesome.
memorabilia, like she had earrings made and rings made out of her old photos, and I thought it was
Just every detail. This is just remarkable.
thank you. Very, very detailed. And like I said, Joseph is just an amazing creative. Like he's over my shoulder the entire time, like, yo, don't forget this, don't forget that. But sometimes you need that little voice, you know what I mean? Because when you get
Yes.
and you're shooting, you're just so focused on like what's in front of you that it's kind of hard to remember everything that you have planned, right? So Joseph being the creative director, coming on and working with me on this, we kind of both work together to make sure that we're getting those details, we're getting those dynamic poses, we're getting, you
Mhm.
know, the fun shots. But yeah, this project was so special to us, and I'm so grateful to work with Sunday School.
I mean, if you I mean, this is just, like, so beautiful. It's like, how did you guys know that you were actually, like, done? Like, that you got everything that you wanted?
Yeah.
Like,
Um, it was like I think we shot for maybe like 5 hours that day or so, and yeah, and I usually don't I'm not gonna lie, like, my portrait sessions, they're like 1 hour, 2 hour, 2.5 hour, you know, like, I don't
mhm,
do, like, full days like that unless it's, like, a full day shoot, and of course, like,
mhm.
we didn't have a budget for this or anything, this is just us creating, like, out of our pockets, but I think I kind of just know when I know, you know what I mean? Like after capturing everything, and making sure, like I said, Joseph being there to just kind of make sure that I'm getting everything that we put in our deck. Um,
Mhm.
I think I kind of just was like, yeah, all right, I got it, you know? And 9 times out of 10, like I get it from really early. Like I shoot really fast and I can get the shot, but I always shoot more just to have extra because I know Joseph.
Mhm.
I'm like, he's gonna ask me to go back and look for something and pull something. So I always shoot more just to have it, you know?
I mean, and you mentioned because again, a lot of things that we do not discuss, when you're doing creative projects, personal projects like that one, 9 times out of 10, there is no budget. There isn't. So how do you guys navigate that? Like, how do you like try to find a way from no way? Like, how do you decide to like really and like you said, Joseph and that his whole like thing is like his project Sunday School, that whole
Mhm.
organization is so amazing because all these stories like I never saw a black ballerina until I saw that series.
Wow.
I
Wow.
didn't. I mean, maybe I wasn't going looking for it because in my head I was just like, yeah, sure, probably they exist,
Of
right? But I
course.
didn't see it and I didn't go looking for it either. But
Wow.
it's not like I was, saw it. And so when I saw that, I was just like, wow. And then, like you mentioned, the color of the shoes, making sure you find those shoes that
Exactly.
match this skin tone and just seeing that the richness of the skin and all of those things. But all of that took time and
Yeah.
costed. So how did you guys navigate that?
So to be honest, Joseph kind of found a lot of the resources. Like we got a stylist, her name is Alea Ryan, and she was able to kind of, you know, reach out and find things for us, find the wardrobe and things like that. But really, you know, not just with this project, but with a lot of other projects, it's really just about like using your resources, reaching out to people in your network, networking across is really important, you know, finding peers that are aligned with your vision and that want to work with you, because you know, like I said, you don't always have budgets to pay for things, you know what I mean? And 9 times out of 10 with the projects that I'm curating, it's coming out of my own pocket, you know? So it's like I'm so grateful and blessed to have other creatives in this industry that are willing to work with me. And that includes like makeup artists and stylists and hairstylists and nail artists and, you know, creative directors, set designers. Like as you come up with these projects, you'll definitely find that your needs kind of change and differ, but it's good to kind of reach out to do castings because you never know who might be looking to collaborate. And I'm always ready and willing to collaborate with people because we need it. You know what I mean? Like that networking across is so important in this industry. So yeah, that's how I kind of navigate it. You know, when you don't have the budgets, you reach out, you try to collaborate with people until you can get those budgets. And that's what I'm doing right now. It's just building the portfolio, showing people what I'm capable of. So that way, when I do get the budgets, it's lit, girl. It's lit. It's
Absolutely.
lit.
There are a few questions relating back to that project that I just showcased.
Yes.
What gear did you use for that? The lighting, the setup, and even your post editing process? Because that melanin,
Yes, girl.
I mean, every time I see your photos, like I could tell because the color grading, everything. But like, yeah, let me stick to the gear first.
Yes. So the gear, I used both my Canon 5D Mark IV, and Nikon had just given me the Z6 II. And so I used that as well. I kind of flip flop back and forth because with the Z6 II, I only have the body lens at 24 to 70. And so with my Canon, I have, you know, my 50 millimeter, my 85, my 100 for those like tight macro shots, those details of like her rings and her earrings and things like that. So I definitely needed to use both just to have the versatility of using like different lenses and stuff. But the lighting, I actually used Godox. It's an 8200, which I got off of Amazon for like maybe $200 or so. And I had that on a tripod that I kind of just folded the legs and turned it into a monopod because we ain't buy a monopod yet, but we're getting there. And I had a lighting assistant. Their name is Alex Webster. Great photographer, great at lighting as well. And Lexi helped me to kind of hold that lighting. I had like an umbrella in front of that, and I lit her in certain areas. I didn't use it for the entire shoot, and I think it's really clear like which photos I used lighting for. But I do like to use a lot of natural light as well. And I know like Joseph and Sunday School, like they use a lot of natural light also. So whenever I'm working with like specific clients or, you know, working with a specific team, I try to make sure that like my style and their style are aligned. And so I tried to keep it as natural as possible, even when I was using the artificial lighting. So, and then what was your second question? It was the it was the lighting, and then what was the second one?
I know I threw a lot at you.
Yeah.
My other question was just even talking about just like your process, like you know, editing flow, that getting that rich skin tone of us.
So for editing, like I said earlier in this chat, I used to use Adobe Lightroom, and I find that I still use Adobe Lightroom for like when I need to batch edit things. So like if I am working an event or something like that, or if I need to quickly like sift through my photos, I'll import into Adobe Lightroom, flag everything that I definitely want to edit. But when it comes to like portraits, if I'm editing, you know, just like 1 or 2 photos or even like 5 photos, I use Adobe Photoshop a lot. I've gotten really good at using Photoshop, and I remember the moment where I transitioned because I felt like Lightroom kind of limited me a little bit when it came to what I wanted to do with skin retouching. And so I import into Photoshop, and I kind of start there to do like all of my preliminary edits. Like I'll just adjust like basic things like exposure, contrast, highlights, things like that. You know, I may adjust color just a little bit if it needs to be, depending on how it was shot in camera. But 9 times out of 10, like, you know, it doesn't really need to be adjusted. And then I bring it into Photoshop. So I think that's camera raw at first. And then I bring it into Photoshop, and I start like the skin retouching, taking out anything out of the backgrounds that I don't want, things like that. And I really want to do like a tutorial on this because I'm really in love with my.
No, just say the word and we'll do a tutorial session.
Yes, I think I need to. I'm not gonna lie, because my skin retouching, you know, I'm happy with it. I'm not gonna say it's elite, but I'm happy with it.
Talk your talk.
Yes, yes. But so I start there, and then I bring it into my phone, to be honest with you. So after that, I export, and I always export at 300 DPI. I'm shooting in RAW at all times. I export at 300 DPI to make sure that I have like the best resolution possible, because, you know, like these, oh yes, Lexi. Yes, 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 you did miss your shout out. Lexi's great. Y'all need to follow Alex Webster Photo. But yes, I do want to do a tutorial because I feel like it's important to show this. I export, I put it into my phone, and then that's where I'll adjust my color. You know, like Instagram kind of lowers the resolution of photos. Twitter doesn't, but Instagram I find that they do. So making sure that I'm exporting at the highest DPI. And for color, so I have a few apps that I use, believe it or not. I do use some very, very natural filters after doing all of that in Photoshop. So really the only thing that I ever need my phone for is adding the color. And my color grade, I do know how to do it by hand, and I have played with like Adobe's color wheel and things like that. And I also took a course on like color theory, so I understand like the relationships of colors, and I try to make sure that I incorporate that before editing. So like while I'm shooting, incorporating those colors, making sure that the environment versus what people are wearing and things, the colors that I want exist already. And then bringing it in post, it's really just about like enhancing those colors, making sure that our skin is represented correctly, and edited correctly. And the filters that I use and things like that, they're super, super natural, very brown, very warm. And a lot of my photos have them, but you'd never know, to be honest, because everything that I do is like kind of prior to, and that's like the finishing touch for me. So yes.
I love that little sneak peek, y'all. Listen, after this summit, I'm gonna follow up with Kreshonna and schedule that session. We need the tutorial. We do. I want to ask you, because you do so many amazing, creative personal projects. Do you find that doing that has helped you book more just other paid opportunities and other paid just like, find more clients that way through your personal projects?
Yes, I definitely believe that. Like I said to you before, I think it was really important for me to do these shoots, these creative shoots, to just show people what I'm capable of. But to be honest with you, like my first film that I did, it's called I Look Good as Hell on Me. It focused on 7 women in underrepresented groups in the fashion and beauty industries. So there were women who were plus size, women who had vitiligo, albinism. I had one disabled model. And just a bunch of other girls, and it was an amazing project. And to be honest with you, I think that was probably the reason why I got my Savage Fenty gig, because I focused on those underrepresented groups of women. But I definitely think it's important to showcase your talent. And yes, it may not always be cost effective, but there are ways, like sometimes you just have to kind of collaborate with people, get out, create things. Yes, girl, show it. Yes, this is I Look Good as Hell on Me. My beautiful,
Let me, you know what? Let me show it a little bit. Let me show it a little bit real quick, because I do love this project so much.
thank
This morning, I decided to take on the world, butt ass naked. I heard nude was in season. Didn't have any pockets to pack my belongings, so I put love on my lips, contour conviction in my cheeks, serenity in my smile, sass in my strut. At least I know no other chick could show up with the same outfit. We'll find this in your local department store. Took my mama 9.5 months to get it delivered. This exclusive, hand-designed by God, one-of-a-kind, original. Today I took on the world in nothing but my birthday suit. Let's say I was going for a natural look. Couldn't tell the catwalk from the city street, caught a glimpse of myself in the window of the boutique. I said, God damn, Look good as hell on me.
I mean, y'all, it is truly, truly amazing. I'm gonna drop it in the chat right now. You have to watch the whole thing. It is just I'm like your mind, but also just like how you handle and curate those spaces for people to just be so open and vulnerable and just like showcase themselves, and you capture that so beautifully. And so I'm really glad to hear that like your personal work has helped lend you these bigger clients.
Yes.
That is amazing. I'm looking at the chat like,
girl,
yes,
I didn't even
yes, yes.
Thank you.
And that's why, I know I know we have reached time, but again, I know that's why it's so important sometimes just to like do these projects. Like if there's something that's burning in you to create that you haven't seen, like look at just if you just spend time on Kay's site, like you'll see that if she doesn't see those stories out there, those photos, that film, whatever it may be, she's out there trying to figure out a way to like tell that story, to be the one bringing it to light, collaborating with others to try and find a way to, again, showcase that. And I'm so glad to hear that it's like been able to help you actually like then land these bigger campaigns, Miss Savage.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad I wasn't gonna bring it up because I knew we were gonna reach time, but someone in the chat actually said that you look like Rihanna.
Oh my God, y'all know that's my girl. Let me
I'm telling you guys, if you go to her Instagram, you'll see this photo shoot that Kreshonna did. Literally, I was like, wait a second.
Yes, I was Rihanna for Halloween, girl.
Yes. So just to hear that you're getting booked by her brand, that is just amazing. I know we're already at time, but Kreshonna, like any advice for those who are just like still trying to figure out how to like whether it's creative personal projects, whether it's like laying down that foundation for a business, whatever it may be, like what would you tell the creatives watching this right now?
So the first thing I would say is don't give up. It's hard, it's not easy, this journey. There's no handbook, but don't give up. Follow your dreams. I would definitely recommend researching your creative business, like really, really understanding the business aspect of being a creative. When it comes to setting your prices, when it comes to navigating the commercial world, understanding how to read your contracts and how to negotiate prices and knowing your worth. We had mentioned earlier, like not all money is good money, knowing when to say no. But also like the balance of everyday life, like survival when it comes to being a creative gets really, really tough. And it's easy to want to give up and to just kind of like revert back into like, oh, getting a 9 to 5 or working a regular job. And if you have to work a regular job, like that's okay, because not everybody has the luxury of being a full-time creative. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't get that luxury until 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. So I would say just kind of hold your head up, keep going, and that's it. Like it's you're gonna make it, you're gonna make it, but you have to be passionate about it and you have to let that passion drive you.
Absolutely. Like how long has your passion been driving you? How many years has this been?
Girl, it's been 11 years. It's been 11 years. I've been shooting since, or 12 years? Yeah, 12 years. I've been shooting since I was 15. I'm gonna be 27 this year. So yeah.
I mean, that's just remarkable. As Elsie said in the chat, please accept your flowers. Because I mean, seriously, and y'all, it does not happen overnight. As she just said, 12 years and going, still has so much more to do. Anything that's coming up for you next that you can share?
Yes. So I am working on a new film, and I'm so proud of this one. It's just in the works. It's going to be a photo series / film. Hopefully, fingers crossed, my first gallery show, solo show this year. So really stay tuned for that. I'll give you a brief description of it. It is focused on altered bodies, so bodies that have either been altered by choice or by unforeseen life-altering experiences. and I casted a group of amazing individuals, which include burn survivors, amputee survivors, cancer, autoimmune, transplant survivors, postpartum moms, trans. I have my trans community in there. And yeah, like it's just a really, really great group of people, and I can't wait for you guys to see it.
Well,
So
if it's anything like your first film, like that alone is so powerful. I mean, Kreshonna, you already know how much I love you.
thank you so
No,
much.
I'm just so thank you again. Truly, thank you again for taking the time. Thank you everyone for tuning in. This was the last speaker session of today's summit. Don't worry, there's gonna be a little networking session after this. So if you want to network, you can. And then I'll wrap it up by having some closing thoughts in a little bit. So thank you all so much. This has just been such a beautiful day one. Again, I can't thank you enough, Kreshonna, for stepping in when Whitney was sick. Thank you, everyone who tuned in and joined us on a Friday. You could be anywhere, and here you are. So thank you. And I hope you all, continue to enjoy this summit throughout. So have a great day, night, wherever you are.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.